Vera stood in the church pretending to mourn me while I stood at the door, alive, watching her lie through a eulogy. My son couldn't look me in the eye. Shame did that for him. I stepped forward and said, "Pause that speech. Reverend, the guest of honor just arrived." That was only the beginning. The air in Savannah that afternoon felt heavy, the kind that clings to your skin and makes the floorboards groan louder than usual. I was sitting at my kitchen table, balancing my checkbook like I'd done every Thursday for 20 years, when the front door opened without a second knock. Vera Lawton walked in as if the deed had her name on it. Her heels clicked against my wood floors, sharp, pointed, like every sound meant to make me small. She didn't bother with a smile or a, "Hi, Mama." She just stood there, purse tucked tight under her arm, phone in her hand face down like a card she didn't plan to show. I didn't move. I just looked at her, waiting for manners that never came. "I need the money tomorrow," she said. No greeting, no warmth, just that. Her tone was polished, corporate. She wasn't here as my daughter-in-law. She was here as a collector. I blinked once. "What money are we talking about?" She slipped a manila envelope onto the table like she was sliding a check across a bank counter. $500,000. Malcolm said you'd understand. $500,000. Not rent money, not a favor, life money. The kind that keeps the heat on when your knees start failing. I stared at the envelope. Her handwriting was neat, loops tight and proud. $500,000, I repeated, slow. "And what's this for, exactly?" Vera crossed her arms. "It's a liquidity issue. Temporary. Family obligation." I almost laughed. "Liquidity," I said. "That's a mighty fancy word for a mess." She didn't like that. Her mouth tightened. "If it doesn't clear tomorrow, we're in danger." "You don't want that on you." "You mean you," I corrected. "I'm not the one gambling with liquidity." That was when she dropped my name like a slap. "Eudora," she said, flat. "Not Mom. Not even Miss Klein." I heard the erasure in her tone, the way she stripped respect syllable by syllable. I folded my hands and asked, "And where's my son?" "He's in the car," she said, glancing toward the window. "Didn't want to come in for the drama." Drama? She used that word like she was already rewriting the story for anyone who'd listen. My neighbor Garnet must have heard the rise in our voices because my phone buzzed. "You okay, baby?" I heard voices. I didn't text help. I texted, "I got it handled." Because I did. Vera noticed and said sharply, "Don't start calling people." That told me everything. She didn't want witnesses. She wanted silence. She thought isolation made me weak. The front door opened again. Malcolm stepped halfway inside. He looked worn, older than his 43 years, but not from work, from worry. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Ma, it's just temporary." "We'll fix it," he said, voice barely above a whisper. I looked at his left hand. That ring of his was scratched dull, the kind of metal that's been through lies. "Did you sign my name on anything?" I asked. He froze, looked at Vera, looked back at me. Silence. That was my answer. Vera jumped in. "That's not important right now. What matters is keeping everyone safe." Safe. She said it like a threat. I didn't flinch. They thought I'd argue. Instead, I said evenly, "All right. I'll take care of it." Vera smiled like victory. Malcolm's shoulders dropped. They thought they'd won. I poured myself a cup of coffee, hands shaking just enough to make me keep them busy, and said, "Y'all go on. I'll handle it." Vera paused at the door. "Tomorrow. No excuses." When the door closed, the house went still again. I locked it, let the quiet sit heavy. Then I said softly, "To no one but you and me." They think I'm scared. They forgot who taught this family how money moves. I picked up the envelope she left. The paper was warm from her hand. When I opened it and saw what was inside, the chill that ran through me was colder than that January air. Savannah's River Street glowed gold that night, all polished brick and river mist, the kind of place where couples clink glasses and pretend life is fine. I walked slower than usual, feeling that sticky air on my face, the hum of jazz spilling from a bar nearby. I dressed nice, navy coat, pearl earrings, my husband's silver bracelet, not for them, but for me. When I stepped inside the restaurant, I saw them already seated. Vera in her cream blazer, Malcolm beside her, both smiling that polite, camera-ready smile. They didn't wait in the lobby. They didn't wave. Just a small nod from Malcolm, like I'd arrived late to a meeting, not dinner with my own child. The hostess led me to a table half hidden by a pillar. My chair wasn't at the head. It was off to the side, like I'd been placed in frame but out of focus. I noticed that everything tonight was arranged, even the humiliation. Vera leaned in with a practiced grin. "Mama Eudora, there you are. We were starting to worry." Her voice sugar-sweet, her eyes sharp as glass. She was performing for the room. Malcolm didn't stand, didn't pull my chair, just adjusted his cufflink like he had somewhere else to be. I took my seat anyway, quiet but not broken. When respect stops showing up, you learn to log the absence. The waiter came, and Vera spoke for all of us, ordered wine, appetizers, used that soft PR tone that makes lies sound professional. She laughed too loudly, touching Malcolm's hand as if she were starring in some ad for family unity. I could see through it like glass. "Whatever you want. Mama, it's on us tonight," she said loud enough for the next table to hear. Then, lower, "You will not make a scene." I smiled back, cool and steady. I didn't plan to. Her control was a theater piece, every sentence rehearsed. I realized then I hadn't been invited to dinner. I'd been invited as a prop. When the wine came, she leaned closer. "We just need to make sure everything moves by tomorrow, so the kids don't get dragged in." There were no kids around. Her lie was crafted for sympathy, like I was the selfish one. Malcolm cleared his throat. "Mom, it's not even about us anymore." The words came shaky, pre-packaged. I knew whose voice he was channeling. "Baby," I said softly, "what are you into?" "It's business, just an aggressive timeline," he mumbled, sweating. Vera's tone brightened for show. "What matters is that we keep our name clean." That's when I felt my face flush, not from shame, but from recognition. This was a play, and I was cast as the obstacle. The server came back, young man, kind eyes, and set down water. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked gently. That question cut deeper than any insult. Someone saw me. Before I could answer, Vera chimed in. "She's fine, just tired. Long day." I looked him dead in the eye. "I'll take decaf. Sweetheart, I'm retired, not dead." The man smiled. That was the first genuine warmth I'd felt all night. Vera's jaw tightened. She hated that I still had my voice. I turned to her. Calm. $500,000 doesn't just move. Vera, where did it go? Her lips barely moved. That's not your lane. That line landed like a slap. Malcolm closed his eyes. "Did you sign my name on anything?" I asked him. Vera cut in fast. "Of course not. Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. The word echoed. That's how they start erasing you. One adjective at a time. I leaned back, let my silence stretch long enough for the waiter to glance our way again. "You keep saying tomorrow," I said finally. "What happens if I say no?" Vera's smile didn't move. Then people get hurt, and you don't want that on you. I saw Malcolm's fingers twitch under the table. Fear. Not of me, of her. I didn't blink. "You two enjoy your meal," I said softly. "You've made your choices." I pulled a small notepad from my purse, wrote the date, the time, her exact words. I saw her eyes flick toward it. That half second of surprise told me she understood something. I wasn't playing along anymore. When the check came, the waiter slipped it toward me. My name was printed under card holder. I hadn't handed anyone my card. I slid the slip into my purse beside my notes. "Thank you," I said, smiling. "I'll handle it in the morning." They both relaxed. They thought I meant the payment. What I meant was something entirely different. When I got home that night, Savannah was quiet in that eerie way coastal towns get after midnight, fog rolling off the river, streetlights humming. I didn't bother changing out of my dinner clothes. My purse felt heavier than usual, full of things that didn't belong to me. The dinner receipt with my name printed wrong, the manila envelope that smelled faintly of Vera's perfume. The clock on the kitchen wall blinked 10:27. I laid everything side by side on the table, like exhibits. The handwriting on the envelope, round, impatient, self-assured, wasn't Malcolm's. I knew that much. I filled the kettle, forgot to turn it off. The house creaked and sighed like it knew something was coming. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. One number stood out like a bruise, a pending transfer, 5 digits short. My stomach tightened. I've known numbers my whole life. They don't lie unless someone tells them to. Then my phone buzzed. Missed call. Coastal First Bank. I played the voicemail. "Mrs. Klein, confirming tomorrow's wire for the Redden account." Redden? My son's last name. My breath stopped. I replayed it twice, 3 times. Then I heard it. Authorization form signed by E. Klein. The word authorization cracked through me. That wasn't family talk. That was legal talk. And I never signed anything, I whispered to myself. They forged me. Saying it out loud made the air colder. I went to the hallway closet and pulled out my old binder labeled Retirement Files. Dust puffed out like it was exhaling secrets. I found the folder marked Accounts 2015 onward. Inside were statements, clean and precise, the kind of records no one else ever understood but me. I booted up my old desktop computer, slow but reliable. The login screen still had Malcolm's setup from years ago. He'd chosen a picture of me and his father fishing on Tybee Island. That small kindness hit harder than I expected. Once inside my email, I saw something that didn't belong. A forwarded message chain, sent to a secondary address I didn't use anymore. The sender, Vera, Lofton Law, Point Trust, Com. Attached was a scanned client consent form. My name typed neatly at the bottom. My voice came out low. She's bold. Not admiration, not anger, just acknowledgement. That woman had guts enough to use her work email. I printed every page and slid them into a new folder labeled Tomorrow. The landline rang at 11:43. I let it roll to voicemail. A man's voice this time. "Mrs. Klein, this is Wendell Creer from Coastal First Bank. Please call me before morning. I think you'll want to see what was filed today." He sounded nervous. Not customer service nervous. Real nervous. I called back, got his machine. "Copies are in your secure inbox. Verify before it's too late." I clicked the link he'd sent. A set of documents appeared. Loan collateral dated that afternoon. My name signed in careful cursive. The E looked like mine. The rest wasn't. Someone had studied my handwriting, practiced it. "She practiced," I said quietly. She actually practiced. My hands didn't shake. I'd seen men lose millions in numbers before. This was just another ledger, another lie. But this time, the balance was me. I opened a fresh notebook and started documenting. Time, date, what was said, who called, what I felt. Every entry signed E. Klein. That was my proof of sanity. Then I remembered Garnett's text from earlier. "You okay, baby?" And smiled. She didn't know it, but she'd just become my witness. Someone in this city would swear I was clear-headed tonight. That mattered. I unplugged the Wi-Fi, switched to mobile. My husband used to say, "Money's just ink until somebody lies on paper." I wrote that on the first page of my new folder. At 1:02 a.m., my computer dinged. New message. Subject. "We know you've been looking." No name, no sender, no footer. I stared at it for a long moment, finger hovering over delete. Then I whispered, "All right then, we're playing that kind of game." I slipped the forged papers into my purse, shut off the light, and said softly to the dark, "Tomorrow, they'll find out what quiet looks like when it fights back." Morning came gray and thin, the kind of savanna light that leaks through Spanish moss and makes the air look tired. I hadn't slept. The tea I'd poured last night sat cold on the counter. My house felt too quiet, too aware. That's how silence sounds when truth starts moving through it. I stood by the kitchen window and watched the street wake up. No cars yet, no neighbors walking dogs. I told myself, once a woman my age stops crying, that's when you need to worry. And I meant it. Tears are mercy. Calm is strategy. At 8 sharp, I called Coastal First Bank. "I need to speak with Mr. Wendell Creer," I said, polite but unyielding, the kind of polite that has weight, the kind that doesn't accept transfers or excuses. While on hold, I spread my papers across the table. The forged signature, the dinner receipt with my name, and the printed email trail. I labeled them silently. Proof, motive, threat. The piles looked neat, orderly. My life turned into evidence. When Wendell answered, his voice was hesitant. "Ms. Klein, I was hoping you'd call." "I'm already on my way," I told him. And I was. At the bank. His office smelled like copier toner and nervous sweat. He closed the door before speaking. That told me more than his words. "This was processed fast," he said, sliding a printout across. "My house, my accounts, my insurance, all listed as available collateral." I studied the page. The forged signature was clean, almost graceful. "That's what they'll claim is mine," Wendell said. His voice softened. "And this email," he handed me another sheet. Subject, "Need this expedited today. Elder is cooperative but anxious." "Elder," I repeated. "Not mother-in-law." He nodded. "I don't like the tone of their messages. They said, and I quote, 'to prevent harm.' You safe right now?" That question hit different. It was the first time anyone outside this mess called it what it was. Danger. Not family drama. "I'm fine," I said. "But from now on, I want every contact between us documented." He blinked. Understood. I asked for copies of everything, with timestamps and a written statement that I disputed authorization. He complied. I signed one page. I did not authorize any transfer. My hand didn't shake. "Paper before feelings," I said aloud, more to myself than to him. "You can cry later." By the time I got home, the sky had turned white and the air hung heavy. I opened my laptop. There it was. An email from Vera, all caps in the subject. "Final warning. Inside, we're not playing. If you don't follow through today, I can't protect Malcolm. And I won't protect you either. You will wire the funds. You will not involve outside parties. This stays in the family. I printed 3 copies, one for me, one for a lawyer I hadn't called yet, one for Garnet Duval. Then I slipped them into a grocery bag, walked 2 doors down, and knocked. Garnet opened her door still wearing her robe. "You look like you mean business," she said. "I do." We sat at her kitchen table. I handed her the papers. "If anyone asks, last night I was clear-minded and I did not sign a thing." Garnet's eyes narrowed. "You want it on record? Please." She pulled out an old cassette recorder, hit record, and held it between us. I said, slow and steady, "My name is Eudora Klein. I am of sound mind. Nobody has my permission to access my accounts." When the tape clicked off, she squeezed my hand. "You're doing right, baby." That simple touch steadied me more than the bank visit did. Proof was power, but witness was safety. "I'm leaving," I told her quietly. "I'm done being where they can reach me." She didn't ask where. She just nodded. "You call if you need me." I walked back home through the wet air, each step measured. My living room looked different now, like a museum of things that no longer belonged to me. I stared at the photos on the mantel and picked up only one. Me at 41, outside my first office, smiling with my first set of keys. That was the woman I needed again. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Clock's ticking. "Where's our wire?" I powered the phone down. "They'll get something tomorrow?" I said to the empty room. "But it won't be a wire." Morning sunlight cut through the blinds like sharp lines across my kitchen wall. I'd been up since dawn, reviewing papers, circling dates, rehearsing what I'd say. I wasn't scared anymore. Fear was noise. This was math. I called the number Garnet had scribbled for me. Claudine Marks, attorney. Her voice came through steady, confident. "Come by before lunch, Ms. Klein. Bring whatever you've got." That tone told me she'd seen this kind of thing before. I slipped my documents into a folder, locked my door, and whispered, "When you carry truth, carry it flat. No wrinkles, no tears." My purse felt lighter than it had all week. Downtown Savannah was already alive, magnolias drooping in the heat, people in linen suits walking slow like they owned time. I parked near Broughton Street, across from the courthouse. Claudine's office was small but neat, walls lined with law books and old photos of courtroom victories. She looked up from her desk when I entered. Tall woman, maybe late 50s. Silver streak through her hair. "You're Eudora Klein?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "I was expecting you sooner." That stopped me. "You were?" She nodded. "Your bank manager, Mr. Creer, called me last night. Said you'd need representation by morning. He sent me part of your file." So my story had already started moving without me. That was new. She laid out a stack of papers marked with yellow tabs. "I've seen this 20 times this year," she said. "They use legal terms to disguise theft. Call it an elder cooperative transfer. Looks voluntary until you dig." "I'm not looking for pity," I told her. "I'm looking for paper." Claudine smiled faintly. "Then we're on the same page." She examined my forged signature, the dinner receipt, the threat email. Every page she touched became organized evidence. She called Wendell on speaker. "Mr. Creer, confirm the unauthorized activity." "Yes," he said quickly. "I've already flagged the file. No transfer went through." "Good," Claudine replied. "You just became a witness." I felt a flicker of satisfaction. "While she's busy threatening, I'm busy documenting," I said. Claudine nodded. "That's how women like us win." She drafted a notice of revocation right there. One single page that could freeze everything in my name. Watching her type felt like watching a lock click shut. Then she looked up. "You said Vera works at Law Point Trust?" "Yes." Claudine's expression turned colder. She opened a state database, typed Vera's name, and turned the screen toward me. "You're not her first mark," she said. "Chatham County, 2 years ago, another elder fraud claim, sealed settlement." I went quiet. She practiced on someone else first. "And she picked the wrong woman this time," Claudine said. She leaned back. "We'll file the injunction and fraud report before 4. That'll block any access and trigger an audit. They'll know by tonight." I exhaled. For the first time in days, I wasn't holding my breath. Then I said, "I want to make one call." She raised an eyebrow. "That's risky." "I'm not warning her," I said. "I'm recording her." I dialed Vera's number and put it on speaker. Claudine hit record on her phone. "Vera," I said evenly, "I've decided to delay the wire until I confirm some details with the bank." Her tone snapped like a whip. "Delay it and you'll regret it. Are you threatening me, baby?" Silence. Then Malcolm's voice, faint in the background. "Hang up. Vera." I ended the call. Claudine saved the file. "That's all we need," she said. She glanced at the clock. "You've got 24 hours before they realize you're not scared anymore." I smiled, slow. "Then I'll make them scared instead." Leaving her office, I walked past the same restaurant where they'd humiliated me 2 nights ago. The windows caught my reflection. Calm, composed, unbroken. Next time I walk in there, it won't be for dinner, it'll be for justice. When I reached home, a sheriff's car idled by the curb. The deputy stepped out, holding an envelope. "Mrs. Klein," he said, "you've been served." The deputy stood on my porch, sweat glinting on his brow. "Ma'am, they asked this be delivered today. You've been notified." His voice was neutral, like he'd said those words 100 times before. I took the envelope and felt its weight, thin, but heavy with insult. The Georgia Sun pressed down as I tore it open. I read the first line out loud: "Petition for emergency guardianship and financial oversight." My name filled the page, followed by words that made my stomach turn. Diminished capacity, financial interference, risk to marital assets. They weren't accusing me of theft. They were painting me as senile. "Oh," I whispered, "so that's the play." The deputy cleared his throat. "Filed by Ms. Vera Lawton Redden, petitioning as family support." Hearing her use Redden, my late husband's name, as a weapon instead of love made something cold move through me. "Thank you, officer," I said, closing the door gently. Not 20 minutes later, I heard their SUV before I saw it. Loud bass, tinted windows, pulling up like they owned the street. Malcolm stepped out first. Phone in hand, suit jacket slung over one arm. Vera followed, wearing all black, sunglasses still on indoors. He didn't knock, just walked in. "We need to talk," he said, dropping his keys on my kitchen counter like he lived here. "Then talk," I replied. Vera hovered near the doorway, fake smile sharp as glass. "We gave you until tomorrow," she said. "We were gracious." "You brought me a deadline," I said, "not grace." Malcolm sat down at my table, and tapped the surface twice. "We just need $500,000 liquid to clear the problem. After that, we're good." "You already took care of the paperwork, didn't you?" I asked softly. "Yeah," he said, smug. "Makes it easier for everyone." That was his mistake, thinking paperwork made theft polite. Vera leaned forward. "If you cooperate, we can avoid making this ugly." I smiled. "You mean like in your petition, the one that says I'm confused? Or were you saving that word for next time?" Her face twitched, the kind of twitch you can't train out. Then I laid out my own papers, 1, 2, 3. Slow and steady. The forged authorization. Her threatening email. The bank manager's written note. "This," I said, "is the record. Yours, mine, and the truth between—" Malcolm froze. Vera's jaw locked. "This," I continued, "is fraud. This is coercion. And this," I tapped her printed email, "is elder financial abuse." Vera tried to laugh. "You think anyone's going to believe that?" "Baby," I said, calm as rain. "They don't have to believe me, they just have to read." Malcolm's tone softened. Desperate. "Mama, please, we're drowning." "You're not drowning," I said. "You're drilling holes in my boat and asking me to patch them." He reached for the papers. I got there first. "Touch that again," I warned, "and I'll make sure the sheriff brings the next set to you." Vera's voice dropped to a hiss. "You think you're untouchable?" I stood, steady. "No. Just documented." They blinked. That word hit harder than any shout. "I spoke with Claudine Marks this morning," I said. "She's filing an injunction by 4. The bank has your email. Vera." They've frozen every line tied to my name, so the next place you'll be signing anything will be in front of a judge. Malcolm turned on her, eyes wide. "You said she wouldn't fight." I took a slow step closer, meeting both their eyes. "I'm not your safety net. I'm not your cover story. I'm not your alibi. That ends today." For the first time, neither of them spoke. The air was so still you could hear the clock ticking. I opened the front door. "You don't come back here unless it's through a lawyer." Vera squared her shoulders. "This isn't over." I smiled. "For you, baby, it's just beginning." They walked out to their car. Silent now. I watched from the doorway until they turned the corner, then locked the door hard. They wanted the money by tomorrow, I told myself, sliding my papers back into the folder. Tomorrow, they'll get the sheriff instead. By sunrise, I was gone, not hiding, repositioned. Claudine found me a quiet rental on Tybee Island, second floor above a small shop that sold postcards and sunscreen. I sat by the window with a cup of weak coffee, listening to gulls scream over the sound of air conditioners. The blinds rattled when the wind shifted. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine. No one had a key but me. In my purse, my ID, my medication, every legal copy, and one photograph, me at 41, standing in front of my first office. Everything else? They could have it. Furniture doesn't hold memory. People do. I told the audience, leaving on your own terms is not running. It's reclaiming. The night before, I had set the stage. I locked every door, changed the alarm code, and left one envelope in the center of my kitchen table, where they liked to sit and play king and queen. I even put the spare key back in the fake flower pot, because I wanted them to find it. On the front of the envelope, I wrote in black ink for Malcolm and Vera, "Open now." If you want someone to open something, you don't make it mysterious. You make it sound like an order. I left no cash, no checkbook, no passwords, just truth sealed in paper. Later that morning, Garnet told me what happened. She saw Malcolm's SUV pull up, music thumping, and Vera already wearing her courtroom black. They walked in like debt collectors. But my house was still. No TV, no purse on the chair, no smell of breakfast. Vera's heels echoed against the hardwood. She called my name once, loud. No answer. That silence? That was freedom humming. Malcolm noticed the envelope first. "What's this?" he asked. Vera smiled, confident. "See? She came to her senses." She tore it open and froze. Inside was Claudine's notarized statement, effective immediately. "Ms. Eudora Klein has filed notice of suspected financial exploitation against Malcolm Redden and Vera Lawton. Beneath that, a copy of Vera's own email, the one that said, "We're not playing here." Another page carried a transcript from their petition, highlighting every word they'd used to call me diminished. The last sheet was handwritten by me. "Son, this is you on record." Malcolm went pale. Vera's smile cracked like thin ice. That's when Deputy Raylan Cole arrived. Claudine had timed it perfectly. A wellness check, scheduled right as they were standing in my kitchen, surrounded by evidence. He walked in calm, professional. "Where's Miss Klein?" he asked. Vera stammered. "She's confused. We're helping her manage." He raised a hand. "Ma'am, don't describe her mental state while also handling her money. That combination doesn't look good." Malcolm bristled. "This is family business." The deputy wrote something in his notebook. "Family or not, financial coercion is still a crime." Then Garnet appeared at the doorway, hair wrapped in a scarf, slippers on. She crossed her arms. "Officer. Ms." Klein recorded her statement at my kitchen table last night. Clear as a bell. Said nobody had permission to touch her accounts. Vera snapped. "You're lying." Garnet smiled. "Honey, I saved that recording to a thumb drive. And that thumb drive ain't in this zip code." Deputy Cole looked impressed. "Ma'am, I'll need your contact for follow-up." Garnet nodded. She'd been waiting her whole life to be taken seriously, and now she was. He turned to Vera. "You mentioned working at Law Point Trust?" "Yes," she said, barely above a whisper. "I'll need your HR department's information for my report." That single sentence stripped her of control. I could picture her face even from miles away. Corporate compliance doesn't take kindly to elder exploitation in an email trail. Malcolm tried to recover. "Mama wouldn't do this to me," he muttered. But even he sounded like a boy caught cheating on a test. I told the audience from my seaside window. That was the moment my son realized I wasn't his alibi. I was the witness. By afternoon, Claudine called me. Emergency injunction filed. Bank notified. HR contacted. Her voice was calm, surgical. "It's moving fast." I exhaled slowly. "Good," I said, not angry, just done. "But peace has a price." I admitted to the viewers. I didn't cry when Vera threatened me. I cried when my own son stood beside her. Some pain doesn't scream. It just sits in your chest. Heavy and familiar. "You raise a boy to stand tall," I said quietly. "You never think he'll learn to stand on your back." Back at my house, Deputy Cole handed Vera his card. "If you have updates, call me. But for now, you're not to touch anything here." Malcolm and Vera walked out empty-handed, the envelope still on the table, their names on every page inside. Garnet locked the door behind them and texted me one word: "Gone." I sat on that little couch by the window, salt air drifting in, holding my own copy of the same envelope. "That's how I bought my freedom," I said softly. "Not with money, with proof." But as the sun set over the water, my phone buzzed. A new email, subject line in all caps, defamation notice. I stared at the screen and whispered, "So, she couldn't get my money. Now she wants my name." 2 weeks passed on Tybee Island, and the quiet began to feel like mine. Mornings smelled of salt and coffee. Afternoons were for small walks to the pier. I paid bills from the library computer, read the local paper, and slept through the night for the first time in months. I told the audience, peace doesn't mean quiet. Sometimes it just means your phone finally stops ringing. Then Claudine called. "They've gone and done it again," she said flatly. She sent a screenshot. Vera's firm had published an internal memo with sadness. We announced the passing of Mrs. Eudora Redden. Estate transfer is in process. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the phone. They killed me on paper, I said. Guess dying is the new identity theft. Claudine didn't laugh. It's serious. Once a death notice circulates, banks start succession protocols. She's trying to move dormant funds before verification. She wants to bury my name so she can steal what's left, I said. Fine, let's give her a funeral. She'll never forget. That Sunday, Garnet called from Savannah. Baby, they're holding a memorial at St. Matthew's. Vera's in pearls, acting like the grieving widow of your fortune. I put on my black suit, pinned my hair up, and said to Claudine, let's go make history. The church smelled of lilies and self-righteousness. I waited outside until the pastor began reading. Eudora was a gentle soul. Then the doors opened. I walked in. The hush was instant, like a storm vacuumed the air from the room. Vera's face drained of color. Malcolm's mouth fell open. Reverend, I said, voice calm but carrying, you might want to pause that eulogy. The guest of honor just arrived. Claudine followed, documents in hand. Judge reviewed your fraud filings. Ms. Lawton, she announced. Expect a call from his clerk within the hour. Vera stammered, It's a misunderstanding, just paperwork confusion. Claudine's tone cut like glass. You filed an obituary for a living woman, then initiated transfers? That's not confusion, that's criminal intent, the congregation murmured. The pastor set down his notes. Malcolm stood but said nothing. I looked at him and said softly, Son, when you stand beside someone digging your mama's grave for a paycheck, you better check whose shovel it is. He sat back down. The silence that followed was judgment enough. Moments later, Deputy Raylan Cole entered with a folded notice. Vera Lawton, you are under investigation for elder exploitation, financial fraud, and falsification of death records. He read it slow, clear, for every witness to hear. Vera's knees buckled. She had to grab the pew. Claudine told the pastor, Please keep all printed programs for evidence. This service just became official. I leaned toward Garnet and whispered, Well, looks like I outlived my own funeral. She smiled wide, proud. By evening, I was back on Tybee Island, barefoot on the balcony, watching gulls glide low over the waves. The legal fight was over. The noise was gone. But peace doesn't erase ache. Justice feels good, Mon, I told the audience, but it doesn't fix everything. You can't sue your way out of heartbreak. Malcolm hadn't called, and I'd stopped expecting him to. Forgiveness. I decided it didn't mean reunion. It just meant I'd stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. Days later, a letter arrived confirming every account was secured in my sole name, my house reinstated, my records clean. Garnet brought peach cobbler and said, You look lighter, baby. I am, I said. The dead weight's gone. That evening, I walked the beach as the sun sank low, the sky the color of copper and cream. They thought they could erase me with paper, I said quietly. Turns out, I've been writing my own story this whole time. I had one more form to sign. My name changed back to Eudora Klein, my father's name, my beginning, my truth. I started life as Klein, I said. I'll end it as Klein. My name, my story, my peace. And when I'm gone for real one day, I hope they spell it right. As I watched the tide pull back under the orange sky, my phone buzzed again. One new voicemail. No caller ID. A woman's voice whispered, You think it's over. Eudora, check the deed again. The wind went still. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't sure I was free.